Hello and welcome, it's Chris from Christopher Holt Training, and welcome to this tutorial where we're going to be talking about correcting lordosis. I'm going to talk about some common sort of treatment methods that maybe aren't as effective as others. Before we get into that, just quickly want to mention I've got my ebook which we are going to be sort of working through and discussing today. So if you are wanting to correct lordosis, then please do just click the link below and go through and purchase that one. Other than that, come along to Facebook or Instagram, or if you're on YouTube, please do like, subscribe, follow. It'd be great to have you there. Any comments below as well, pop in any comments, feedback, any questions, things like that. I'd be more than happy to answer those. But yes, coming back to what we're talking about, which is correcting lordosis. Now, a lot of people tend to just think it's about stretching, but what I'm going to discuss is it takes a little bit more than that when we're talking about correcting lordosis. And what we're essentially looking at, and in some respects, what, if you want to call it a method that I use, then okay, great, it's a method that I use. But basically, the more I've learned about the human body and in some respects how it works and how we need to work with it is more important, I guess. But the more you sort of learn about that, the more it will sort of tell you how you're, in some respects, meant to do it, or how you can do it, or how it likes to work. So when we're talking about correcting lordosis, what we need to be focusing on is repositioning the lumbar spine, and in some respects repositioning the pelvis, because as mentioned in here, there are sort of other conditions associated with it. So first of all, we need to understand sort of the lay of the land. How healthy is the spine? How sort of bad is the lordosis? So I talk a little bit about that. And then it's sort of coming on to, once we understand the lordosis, the position of the spine, the position of the pelvis, what we then need to go about doing is repositioning it. So it's not just a case of stretching the muscles. A lot of people will go to see someone about, or they'll learn about lordosis, and they'll go straight to stretches because they think, right, I need to stretch my muscles and then that will reposition my body. But unfortunately, most of people's posture is learned. There are some people who have, structural deviations, or they have sort of congenital types of posture. But most people's posture is learned, which basically means if they can learn bad posture, you can learn good posture. So this is where my ebook comes in. It's about helping you relearn good posture. Because what we need to be able to do is essentially 3 steps. So these are, you could say, like 3 essential steps. First of all, we need to loosen and make the muscles that we're trying to stretch and move more supple, so they're able to do it. How I've always described it is, think of a muscle like a piece of chewing gum. As soon as you take it out the packet, it's very stiff, it doesn't move very well, and in the worst case scenario, if you pull it apart, it can break. But when we go about chewing it, making it warm, we make it supple, we then go to stretch it, and it stretches much easier. And then when it comes to moving it, we're going to be able to move it a lot easier. But we're going to leave movement for a second. So what we need to be able to do is, in some respects, soften the muscle, make the muscle and the tissues, the ligaments, the tendons, the fascia, we need to make them more supple, more pliable. So when it then comes onto the stretching, we are then able to get much more from that stretch. So where there are certain stretches which are useful for lordosis, we need to set the body up ready for them. So we can use foam rolling, we can use massage, we can use sort of self-massage, so that could be with certain other sort of instruments that you can use to massage, possibly in and around the lower back, in and around the hips. It's a little bit harder to get to the psoas because it's sort of in the abdominals, but we can get to certain sort of aspects of it in and around the QL, erector spinae group, so on and so forth, so we can loosen those off. Then we can come to stretching that area. Now, I always talk about stretching the area where there are sort of stretches for specific muscles, which is useful, but certainly in the outset and in the sort of the beginning stages of it, just stretch the area, because there's going to be a variety of muscles, a variety of tissues that are going to be stiff, that are going to be tight, that when we go into a position, you're going to feel it in other places. So we just need to just get that area loose first. So we sort of foam roll, self-massage, or even massage that area. We then go about stretching that area. So we're talking about front of hips, that psoas area, which goes sort of through the hip up onto the lumbar vertebrae, abdomen. So we're stretching, that type of area. What that then allows us to do is probably the most important part. What we've now done is we've now created more mobile tissues, more mobile joints. So what we can now do is start repositioning the lumbar spine, so we can start flattening the lumbar curve. We can then start repositioning the pelvis. Because we've got that greater mobility, if we try and do it without first that sort of foam rolling and massage stage and stretching stage, it's going to be like that stiff piece of chewing gum. It's not going to move very much, so it's going to be a lot harder to reposition. So we've done this foam rolling, we've done the stretching, we now come on to the repositioning. So we start doing that. Now, why we're doing that, all your muscles, all your tissues are connected to your central nervous system, your brain and your spinal cord via the nerves. Now, the more we go into poor postures, the more that position gets reinforced up here. So through the nerves, up the spinal cord, and into the brain. So if we can reposition, so if we can make everything supple, more mobile, and we can get into these new positions or newer positions, because it might not go into the full position straight away, but over time, as we keep relearning, it will start going further and further into better posture. So we use movement and we use repetition of those movements to go into the better postures. What that then does, that starts reinforcing in here those better postures. Within the brain, that starts to neuroplastically remodel it, i.e. sort of change its structure within and change the neural networks and the neurons and how they connect in the brain. And then as we start relearning, repeat, it starts reinforcing. As we use less of the poor postures, they start to sort of break down and they stop being used. So the brain goes, well, if I'm not using them, I may as well sort of degrade them and put them further down on the priority. So the more we reinforce good posture, the further up it goes. The less we reinforce poor posture, the further down it goes. But we can only do that with that sort of mobilize or suppleize, if that's a word, stretch, and then move. And then we just keep repeating that and reinforcing it. And that's what I go through in this ebook. So as you get further through the ebook, so I sort of set out the landscape first, talk about lordosis, scroll up, talk about lordosis, talk about the spine, talk about the muscles, just sort of help you understand the different bits of anatomy. So then when it comes on to how to flatten your lordotic curve, which I talk about here, you'll have a much better understanding. Then we talk about, we sort of take that a little bit further and I show you the progression. So this is where you start in this sort of, this page, oh, hang on. This is where you start and it's disappeared, here we go. So this is where you start, and then as you go through, there's sort of, you can see the progressions as you go through. Then I start helping you with the stretches, mobilizing the joints, and some exercises to use to be able to engage certain muscles, find certain postures, so on and so forth. And then right at the bottom is the workout guideline. So that's how you sort of bring all that I've described together. So I talk about all the parts, I talk about the anatomy, so you understand the anatomy. I talk about all the different sort of exercises and stretches to start working through to help you sort of reposition the lumbar part of the spine, and then you can start putting it together, sort of talk you through like rep sets, how many days you should be doing, how long sessions should be, and things like that on that final page on just how to put it all together. Then you can go about doing that over a period of time, and then it's just a case of being patient, giving yourself feedback. Is this working? Is it not working? What do I need to add in? Do I need to add in extra stretches? Do I need to do them for longer? So on and so forth. But that will only come out as you start to progress through. So that in some respects is a sort of distilled formula in my ebook that I've put into sort of written form to be able to get you started with correcting lordosis, loosening up hips, spine, so you can start repositioning the spine and then just start being in that better posture. So hopefully that's giving you some insight to not only how to overcome how to correct lordosis, but also a little bit of insight into what's in the ebook. So if you do need some sort of guidance with that and you need all the parts to put together, then please do go and download that. The link is in the description below. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you for watching. My name's Chris. I will speak to you in the next tutorial.